Today's episode is going to be, in my intention, kind of like a conversation as if we were just friends hanging out. And I'm just telling you about how I was able to overcome emotional eating, binge eating, weird issues with food, restrict and binge, trying to exercise a whole bunch. If I ate too much, pressure, all that stuff, all that weird food stuff. I am free from that now. And I'll lace in how I've been able to help other people get past that too. I would say this is a strong suit in my coaching and something that I am very grateful that I was able to get past because it sucks so bad and takes up so much energy, so much bandwidth. It's like you have this whole huge thing going on in your life that at times can take over even like things that matter, like family time or being fully present with friends and gatherings because you got this whole thing going on in your mind about like being freaking restrictive with food or whatnot. And there's varying levels, okay? But like all the way from like I'm just kind of overthinking about it all the way to like full on binge eating disorder. And so it's kind of like a spectrum. But I'm going to share with you my experience and the concepts that I teach my clients and the things that I have learned myself in hopes to help you also get past all of that hell. Okay. So to set the stage a little bit, I was one of those kids that was always kind of overweight, right? And then in high school, I was able to get a grip on it sort of through, eating things like half of a turkey sandwich and a skim milk for lunch. Oh man. I graduated high school in 2001. So this is like the late 90s. Okay. And then fast forward to like having 4 kids. I did okay losing weight actually after my first two, but after my third, and then especially after my fourth, like things were not moving at all. And I was about 175 pounds. I'm 5 foot, almost 5'7". I'm like 5'6 3/4. Okay. Like 175 pounds, no muscle, not lifting. Like, you know what I mean? You guys have seen the pictures if you're listening to my podcast, probably. And when I got in shape, I went very much the bodybuilder route. That's all there was available to me. One of the reasons I do social media is because social media gave me information that was not available to me in my day-to-day life. Like I didn't know. And so I was just like, people following me now. Like I'm just following all these chicks. I'm like, how did they get like this? What are they doing? Are they tracking their macros? Are they lifting weights? Okay, got it. They all seem to hate cardio. I'm not giving up running yet, but okay, and following that path. But that path, this is like, I don't know, like the mid 2010s. So it was like very toxic. It wasn't all the way toxic, but it was definitely a lot of like wounded people trying to be enough. I was in that same energy, so I matched right up with it. And it just became it worked, but it became this very restrictive thing, a lot of pressure. And I would definitely have all of these, binging type moments and whatnot. And then starting my business, I kind of went through a really unhealthy relationship after my divorce, lost everything. And then that building myself out of the rubble stage, my stress was like an all-time high. And because I was kind of doing okay-ish on all that, but at that time it all got kicked back up, right? And I found myself driving to, just being real with you, I told you it was gonna be like I'm your friend telling you a story. I would start like I was trying to work till late at night and I start driving to freaking 7-Eleven. I kid you not. 7-Eleven and getting like donuts and whatever kind of freaking junk food. And I would like full on binge. And just in addition to that, just all those kind of behaviors, like it's not just that you're like having donuts or having pizza. I might have donuts or have pizza now. I'm talking about something totally else entirely. When you're like fantasizing about it and then you feel in this like weird out of control place where you just like can't stop eating it. I'm talking about that. And I know a lot of y'all know that place. That's what I'm talking about. And like you're full, you're physiologically full, but you just can't stop eating. Like, oh my gosh, I went through that for so long. And so many of my clients come to me and they're in that place. And that's why I was like, okay, let's do a full. I've actually wanted to do this for so long, you guys, because it's like such a problem. So I'm glad we're doing it now. I'm glad I'm doing it now. All right. So there are a few things that lead into this that need to be addressed before we get into practical strategies. I'm like, this is a lot easier when I'm just like doing this with a client one-on-one, but I'll try to go general. The first thing is like, because what I'm trying to say right now is if this was a client that was telling me they were struggling with this, I would immediately start asking them about like wounds, emotional wounds with their bodies, right? So, what's your relationship with your body? Oh, horrible. Oh, when did that start? Oh, well, when I was fat growing up and my dad told me I was fat and ugly. And it's like, okay, that's a good start. Then what happened? Oh, okay, trauma, 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 all this emotional stuff. Got it. Okay, cool. And I share that with you because like that is the deeper work that needs to be addressed. And I get that that can be scary to address, or you just feel yourself kind of avoiding wanting to address that, or you don't know how exactly to address that, or like what tools, or, and hopefully this episode can be a good start for you because I am going to give you some actual applicable strategies of how you can move out of this pattern. But I just want to set that stage first. Like, if you are like ridiculously obsessed with like, I have to be super, I have to lose weight, I have to change my body composition, have to, and you're putting insane amount of pressure on yourself, and this has been going on for some time, my first question is, when did this start and what happened? And might be good to talk to somebody about that, because you may have some beliefs about yourself and your body and about life that aren't entirely true, aren't based in reality, are based out of wounds. And it's kind of like a little kid, like parents get divorced and the little kid like assumes like, I don't know, that their parents don't love them or it's their fault or like something like that, and it's like, no, dude, it's not your fault. Like, no. That's kind of how people who are in wounded places with their body, it's kind of like that. It's like you've come up with these stories about yourself and about life, and it's not like that, And so that's about as good as I can address like generally on a podcast, is like just encouraging you to ask yourself, like, when did this insane pressure start and what happened? And is this coming from a wounded place? And granted, if you're just like in a healthy place and you're just like, no, I want to take care of my health and blah, 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 and if you are in that other place and you're telling everybody and telling yourself that you're in the healthy place and nothing's really wrong and you just want to optimize your health and it's freaking BS and there's something deeper going on, then that's another thing. Okay. So just saying, because like sometimes I have found that there's a fear of letting go of there's a fear of healing. There's a fear of letting go of this insane pressure because you think that if I don't have this unhealthy motivation going on, then I might not care anymore. And I might turn into this, fat, lame version of myself. So I have to hold on to this woundedness, or I have to hold on to these stories, or I won't ever get to where I want to go. And that's just not true. You can get to where you want to go much easier in a much easier way when you learn how to motivate yourself out of wanting what's best for yourself, not from a place of trying to be enough and earn that place. That's what I've had the extreme privilege and honor of showing people through coaching. And it's like so cool for them to make choices out of a self-honoring place, push their limits, push what's possible for them in their lives from a self-honoring place, not from a trying to meet up. That trying to meet up to some expectation you have for yourself is what's keeping you small, is what's holding you back, is what's keeping you in these self-sabotaging patterns. Because you don't actually believe that you are that. And I mean it like that. Like whatever you're trying to be healthy, you are. Start living in that reality of I am healthy. This is who I am. I know that I may have some extra inflammation and body fat and, my hormones might be struggling or my gut might be struggling, but I am healthy and I'm just taking care of this issue. Because if you're coming into, oh, sick old me is just trying my best to live a good life, like don't do that to yourself. Anyway, I digress. All right. So address that. You can come to a place of pushing into your best, most healthy place of your physique, building muscle, eating healthy, sleeping well, like doing all the things, getting sunlight, playing, being happy. You will do that so much more effectively when you are in a good place with yourself. The people who, it's totally fine if like being super health conscious isn't like a huge priority, like I think that's a healthy place too. But in general, people who are in a healthy place with themselves have a natural desire to take care of their health, in my opinion, in my experience with humans. because it's just like, I want what's best for me. And if that's not going on, there's something going on, you know? All right. Now we've addressed like the emotional side of like what is causing so much pressure. So that's maybe phase one for you. But I'll also give you these other things to consider as you go through this journey. The first thing is if this is a chronic thing that's been going on for a while, and you have been tracking all your food, I would really consider stopping that. Yep. And you can do a periodic, like one day, every month or something. You can just, okay, I wonder how I'm doing, curious. But if you're having a lot of binge and restrict type things and you've been tracking food for a really long period of time and it just keeps exacerbating that problem, that might be a big part of the problem because some people can handle tracking food just fine. I have some people come through my coaching systems and they're like, nope, I just want this body composition change and I'm going to do it. And they just do. And they're like, thanks, Sarah, and see you later. And I'm like, wow, that was easy. That's not most people. That is not most people. And I've seen through the years so many people who this tracking thing creates disordered relationships with food. They're not wired for it well. It makes them for anyone, it's going to make you very hyper focused on your food. It's a whole thing. But some people can emotionally manage that a lot better than others. So if you've been tracking for a really long time and this just keeps happening, you're just like, feel like you're like losing if you eat too much and then you can't handle it anymore and you eventually binge and then you're like, that can be a complete and total game changer to let go of tracking and to start building trust with yourself that you will feed yourself healthy foods, that it's okay to eat when you are hungry. But the pattern change is if I'm super hungry, I'm not going to go on some bender of junk food. I can eat whatever I want, but I'm going to go on a nutrient feast. That's a term that I use with my clients because I have found that to be helpful. And it's just many of you have probably heard me talk about this on lives or something. I feel like I talk about this all the time, but if you're just having a day where you're extra hungry, and that can be very warranted, like I had a client recently, she's like, I kind of binged on all these healthy things. I'm like, not a binge because, here, let me finish. She's like, I skied for like 4 hours and she ate like, in my opinion, a very appropriate amount of healthy things, and that's great. Do it. She was like hardcore skiing for 4 hours, but I was like, I would just want to tell you like, hey, you managed that really well. Like you've got the ropes of nutrition. Like you ate really healthy things. Like, well played. That was awesome. So nutrient feast, whether it's maybe a big activity level change like that, or women, you're in your, just started your luteal phase, or maybe right before your period, or whenever for you, maybe something's going on with your hormones that you're just hungrier than usual. Or for guys, like all sorts of things can impact our hunger levels. So instead of fighting that so hard, when you're having one of those days where you're just like, I am hungry today, like my appetite is something fierce, is rowdy, I like to just nutrient feast, meaning just get a look at it as how many healthy things, how many nutrients can I just give my body right now? I'm hungry, I'm going to eat a lot, so I might as well try to flood my body with as many beautiful nutrients as I can right now and move on. A lot of people I've learned are like, they're saying they're binging when they're really just like, I had a woman on carnivore who told me, she was like, I have a bad binging problem. And it was because she ate like 5 hamburger patties, but she was carnivore. I'm like, yeah, sorry, is that a lot? I'm like, I'm sure I could do that if I got hungry enough, and that's all I'm eating. So sometimes I think that this insane pressure around eating less and losing weight and being thin can really warp our perception of like what binging or overeating is. Sometimes you're just hungrier. And that's okay. So I like to rephrase it like if I'm eating more than normal, I just like to rephrase it as I'm really hungry right now. That's a normal human experience to be extra hungry sometimes. And so just the pattern change is like when if you've been used to eating unhealthy, processed, standard American diet stuff, you are going to have a dramatic shift in your overall health and body composition if when you're really hungry, instead of eating, fast food and ice creams, all that kind of stuff, and maybe some candy later or whatever, and you switch that to nutrient dense food and you're having like a beautiful Japanese sweet potato with butter and salt and some steak and some salad. And, you've learned how to make the salad bomb instead of the gross stuff you grew up with like Hidden Valley Ranch and croutons and crap. I learned how to make a good salad if that hasn't entered your life yet. Okay. Look online. There's a million ideas, but when you're feeding yourself that kind of stuff when you're hungry and you've learned how to make it taste good, that is a complete and total game changer. You can have a day where you're super hungry. Like I'll have days I'm pretty lean. Like if you're not watching me on video right now, I'm like, I can see my freaking deltoids. You guys have seen me. I'm not trying to be this lean. This is a result of me. Oh, I'll get into it in a second. But what I'm saying is like, I have days where I might eat like 3 bowls of chili and like I'm just so hungry, with cottage cheese on it, maybe some fruit after, or maybe some dark chocolate. And I'm like, I'm starving. Cool. I don't sweat it. I'm just look at it as I'm really hungry right now. And that's okay. And it's resulting in me being super lean for a long time now. I will tell you, I'll make a quick side note on that. I do walk a lot. But I walk a lot because that is my only cardio. And I know I need that for cardiovascular health. It also helps me get a little bit of a mental alertness boost so I can work off my phone. And I walk for an hour uphill on the treadmill most days. And then I lift because it's literally my favorite freaking thing to do. And I sleep well. And I intermittent fast. I do intermittent fast because it just makes me feel the best. I've tried, I play with, sometimes I might go out of that. I don't sweat it if I do, but for the most part, I intermittent fast, meaning, and people always want to know. I don't know, dude. I mean, some days I might eat as early as like 10. I'd say typically it's like 11-ish. And then I don't know. It just really depends, but I'll probably end on a crazy early day because I went freaking ham on food at like 4 or something. I might be done then, but usually like 6, maybe even 7 sometimes, but usually not because I go to bed kind of early around like 7:30. I'm like taking melatonin somewhere around there, So anyway, so yeah, that's me. I just thought I'd caveat on that real quick, but it's caused me to be in this flow now because and why am I intermittent fasting? Let me hit on that real quick. I'm intermittent fasting purely simply for health reasons because of the data on circadian rhythm and meal timing. I started trying it and I just started feeling the best I've ever felt in my life. And like not eating a couple hours before bed. That's why I try to, I'm probably generally asleep around 9, a little after 9. So like eating at 7, I'd like to finish earlier than that for sure. And I usually do, but not eating a few hours before bed. Like I just wake up so recovered. My sleep is so good. Like I just feel freaking good, so I'm not intermittent fasting to be thin. Honestly, like I'm a little leaner than I like think would probably I don't know. I shouldn't say that. This is where my body's landing, but I'm just saying like I don't necessarily like want to be this lean or like am pushing towards being this lean. I'm okay if that's where my body's landing and I'm feeling good, but I'm just trying to say that like my motivations are health and play and fun, and I do know that a huge part of me being able to stay lean, strong, have good athletic performance is because one, I'm not binging anymore because I've let go of all of this weird mental stuff that was going on it's amazing what happens for your body composition when you don't binge anymore and you're filling up on mostly healthy, nutrient dense food. It makes a big difference, And so, yeah, I'll wrap that whole point up there. All right, let me shift into a process that you can do. I'm going to do 2 processes. One of them is based on the earlier part of my journey when I first started like being able to change my food choices into something healthier. And meaning I want brownies, I want cookies, I want cinnamon rolls. Oh my gosh, like something like that. And I started to envision, like I pretended I ate it. I feel like I've said this a bunch of times recently, so I'm going to go through this one kind of quickly in case you guys have heard this, but I pretended I already ate it. I asked myself how I felt now that I've eaten this. I just ate all the cinnamon rolls. I just ate all the cookies. I pretend you ate like 8 of them. Okay, where are you at? How do you feel? I'm like, oh, I hate how this feels. I hate how this feels. And I was like, okay, I don't want to feel like that. What can I eat instead? And so I would either eat a full on meal again, or like a delicious protein shake or something like that. And it's amazing how you don't binge on that stuff when you realize that you were just freaking hungry and they just looked like this low-hanging fruit of like calorically dense deliciousness. And then if I did have them, I mean, early on, yeah, I still wasn't good. If I did have them, I still wasn't good. So let me fast forward to that point where I finally got good. Okay, so let's go to the gas station thing. That was happening. This was like the end of all of this pattern for me, was that gas station thing. This is really truly when it started to end. And also I was doing an immense amount of healing work. This was probably like around the time I did ayahuasca. I'd had many, many healing psychedelic journeys before then. And after then, I was working with Catherine Dixon now, like she was like, yeah, beyond therapist, mindset coach. Like I was just going so, so deep on healing. So that helped a lot also. But this was a transformative moment for me. It was like I was going to get the donuts. Some of you have heard this on another podcast, so I'll try to be brief, but I was going to get the donuts again. And I started talking out loud to myself, which is a tool I use with my clients. I'm like, seriously, I just told a client this week, I'm like, talk out loud to yourself in the car when you're by yourself about this. Okay. It works. It works. So I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you going to get donuts right now? And I made myself answer out loud. Try it sometime. It's really powerful. You are not going to want to answer out loud. You're going to want to do it in your head. You know why? Because you can trail off when it gets hard to finish the thought. So make yourself answer out loud. And I was like, because I'm hungry. I was like, nah, because they sound good. But yes, because I'm stressed out of my freaking mind. And I know that if I go do this, it will distract me from this project I'm trying to do. And then I'll just end up feeling like all crazy and whacked out and just go to sleep. Jackpot. And so I challenged myself to go home and do some breath work. So I have already left. It's like late at night. I was in crazy fight or flight mode, survival mode of my life at this time. It's like probably like 10:30 or something. Last thing I want to do is like turn around and go back home when I'm already like halfway there. And I was like, I challenged myself. I coached myself. I was like, if you go back home and do 5 minutes of breath work and nothing changes, then you can go back and get the donuts. Deal? I was like, okay. And I was so angry. I was like, did not want to do it. It took like everything I had. Oh my gosh. And I went home and I laid on my bed and I started doing the breath. And the next thing I knew, it was the next morning. I just fell asleep. I was just freaking tired and stressed out. And so I share that story, and I apologize if you've already heard it before, but I share that story because in the processing of that, I was like, wow, okay. So I just was using that as an escape to get out of this like crazy work stress, but it's pointless anyway because I just need to go to bed. And so that was when I committed to going to bed earlier. He's like, you can't keep doing this, dude. Like, so I committed to going to bed earlier. And that in and of itself was like huge. If you have nighttime eating stuff, if you start going to bed earlier and getting up earlier, I mean, I'm telling you, that can like almost just straight up solve it for you. Yeah. Because if you just keep staying up later, like you just get hungry. When I do stay up later occasionally, like I'm like, dude, yeah, I would probably still eat stuff late at night all the time because I'm freaking hungry again because it's 11 o'clock. I haven't eaten since 5. I'm starving, So something to think about. And nothing that really builds your life happens after 9 o'clock. Somebody said that forever ago on a podcast, and it was like, right. I can't remember who it was. Some bodybuilder. Okay. So next, I guess, well, let me share that the point of the strategy, or the strategy that I wanted to give you, the point of that story was that I learned that I didn't have good stress response, like tools. I mean, I did, but not really. I wasn't using them. I obviously knew about breath work for getting into my parasympathetic, and I knew I was stressed, but I wasn't using them. So I just want to throw that out there for your consideration too, is like, emotional eating or drinking or binging or whatever, a lot of times it's become this one stress management tool that it's like our only one. It's like Pavlov's dogs. It's like stress, food, not enoughness, food, fear, anxiety, whatever, you name it, food. And we just need new options. So go on an exploration journey with that, like maybe you can go for a walk. Even in the cold, even if it's cold where you're at, that probably really get you out of it. Maybe you can do an ice bath when that kind of stuff hits you. Maybe you can do some breath work. Maybe you can call somebody, but getting some new stress management tools is most likely in order if you've been using food as your only one or like your main one, or Or like, what do you do? What other tools do you have available to you when you feel that coming on? Think about that. I remember I did at one point like start going for walks in the late afternoons because I was still a stay-at-home mom at this time. And I realized like, whoa, the snacky thing is getting cray at this time of day. And so I would just go for walks and I totally took care of it. So, got to do you and what works in your life. But think about that. Like, what are my tools for when this pattern kicks in? What other options do I have? What can I do? Okay, let's see. The last thing I just kind of want to hit on is if any of you like listened to my podcast or followed me, went back in 2021 when I was doing a bikini competition that was kind of like me as a spy, as a coach, just kind of experiencing what was all up with that. Just because I was having so many clients come to me that seemed very, very not okay in their bodies or their emotional health, or like, I'm not saying everyone is that way after doing this type of competitions, but in my experience, most people are not doing well in terms of relationship with food and their bodies and eating patterns and all of that. And yeah, it got me, even though was in a good place with food for quite a while. This is way after that breathing on the bed and it was way after that. I had been good for a while, but I just, through that severe restriction of the bikini competition, and it was severe for me, like 1,500 calories a day. That's what I was eating, is so small. Like I was like starving. I felt like I was starving, and I was 12.8% body fat when I started the prep. It was like an 8-week prep, and 10 point something. So for 2% body fat, like I went from like amazing quality of life to like brain dead and can't even function to go do stuff with my kids, and nothing matters. And more than this, all I can think about is how starving I am. Like, come on. Come on. So I just want to share, like, after that, yes, I have a whole podcast about it. I was so messed up with food. Like, it was like, if it's healthy, I don't want it. I started eating all these processed foods. I was like, I got really messed up again for a little while. I can't remember how long that lasted, but felt like maybe a couple months or something. I don't know. It was bad. It was so bad. And it just really solidified for me how much restricting your food, I'm going to say for the wrong person, but also that means a lot of people, restricting your food can be a very, very slippery slope to disordered eating. And so, like I said, for some people it can work and they just get the job done and they're just like, I don't know, it works for them, but it definitely does not work for everyone. And I'd say most of my clients like start off tracking and then we get real, and some of them still continue to track. I've got clients tracking right now, but a lot of them, it's like, no, this is not it. This is not what you're looking for or what you need. And there are ways to be healthy and fit without tracking every morsel of food that goes into your mouth. I know, because I am. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to make an episode about this and just kind of open up this conversation because it's so common. I mean, if you thought you were alone on this, oh my God, I hope you didn't think you were alone, right? Like, hopefully there's like enough info out there that that like this is a really, really, really common issue that people go through when they're trying to lose weight, and it totally, totally, totally can be healed. You got to go out. If it's really deep, you're going to need help on the mindset shifts about yourself and life. And, you're going to need deeper healing to fully get out of it. Probably. Okay. If it's really deep and it's been going for a long time. Okay. There's so many people who can help you. And then what's coming through for me is like to address the fear that happens between the control, right? Because fear seeks control, right? So it's like, if you've been tracking your food for a really long time, that's a lot of control, right? So there's probably a lot of fear. And I just want to acknowledge that it can be scary to get out of that. If your fear is, if I ever stop having this much control, I'm going to get fat. And then I have all these associations with how horrible that's going to make my life and how unlovable and blah, 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 and not good enough and blah, blah, blah that I'll be. You may need support. And if you think that you've got it on your own, start with building a trusting, loving relationship with your body, meaning actually talking to it. Because long-term tracking is like, I own you, body. You are it's kind of like you're the enemy. It's like you have all these cravings and needs, and no. And I get it. It serves a purpose for a time in terms of awareness of what's going in and blah, blah, blah. But after a while, if it's been going on a long time, that can become a pretty toxic relationship, you and your body. It's just a lot of control, and start talking to your body, start asking it what it needs, start giving it nourishment with love versus like all you get is this. Don't ask for more, start treating it in this honoring way. If it's a little hungrier, just give it more nutrient dense things. If it's not hungry, don't just trust that, get good sleep, drink good water, get plenty of, salt and electrolytes, get sunshine, have good relationships, eat good food, exercise, like repeat, because health can be so much easier. These very tactical, strategic things, they can be helpful to raise awareness, but health ultimately should not be stressful. It should be joyful, And so that, in my opinion, is like the end goal and where I and a lot of people I know live. And it's really wonderful. It's very freeing. It's just like, I just want to take good care of myself. I'm not all stressed to the max about every little thing. I'm just eating good food. And if it's not perfect, sometimes like no sweat, I eat really well almost all the time. And I cook my food at home and I love it. And I love to exercise and I honor if I need more sleep or rest. And it's just it's so much ease, that's to me like the joyous place of health that I truly hope that most people can get to, So if you've been tracking and doing all that stuff, like you have laid the foundations, like, what's in your food, you got it, and if you haven't and you're curious, that can be a very valuable part of a journey. It's like, oh, wow, I did not even realize, like, I see. Okay. But after time, it needs to be let go of, period. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. Like you can do whatever you want, but if you want ease, then it needs to be let go of, because then you don't have this whole thing like taking over your life. It's just food shouldn't require that much energy eventually, So, all right. I'm sure when I get done with this, I'm going to think of like 50 other things I should have said, but that is what's coming through for me for now. So please, if you have any thoughts on this, like please share with me on social media or, however you reach me. But yeah. All right. Much love, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope it's been helpful to you in your journey. If you think that it might be helpful to someone please share it with them. Please share on social media. It really helps me grow the show and reach more people with these amazing messages. And if you could be so kind as to rate the show and possibly even leave me a review, that really helps. So much thanks in advance if you do that. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to hear more of this type of content. I have lots of amazing expert guests on the way. All right. Thank you.